Who cares about the forest? Funny that snail mail is what woke me. Well, that and my bookkeeper saying, do you really have to kill so many trees? And of course this email, how can you call yourself an environmentalist if you print on dead trees? I thought to myself, that is ridiculous. But the truth is, I was like a flopsy bunny lulled into a soporific state, dreaming that so long as I obeyed the 3 R's, all would be well. But that dreamy feeling ends as we drive into the boreal forest, and an 18-wheeler with 70 tons of fresh-cut trees whizzes by. The boreal forest is being logged. The boreal forest stretches from the Yukon to Labrador, and 45% is allocated to logging companies. We arrive at the harvest area. I see tall black spruce trees lying on the forest floor. The feller buncher picks up the 50-foot tree, cuts it into logs, and discards the tops. Why do they waste the tops? But the bigger question is it right to cut trees? But who am I to point fingers? I live in a house made of wood. I walk on floors made of wood. I use paper made from wood. In fact, I write books about my green conscience, and the books are made from 100% post-consumer waste, which is really wood when you go back to its origins. And you have to go back to the forest, because fiber can only be recycled a half dozen times. I can't imagine living without wood, but living without forests is unthinkable. Forests are the lungs of the planet, and our tap to fresh water, and our biggest carbon bank. I dropped by WWF Canada to ask Monty Hummel, President Emeritus, why he cares about the forest. I asked Monty the same question. Is it right to cut down trees?
I don't happen to think it's a sin to cut a tree down, but it really depends on how it's done, which brings us back to FSC. I mean, that's the standard, the best the way to, if you're going to harvest trees, then let's do it to the highest standard possible.
I feel a bit sheepish. I have seen FSC many times, but never appreciated that it means forest stewardship. And then Monty tells me, if you're looking at an FSC certified product, you know that the wildlife habitat was protected, that local communities were consulted, and that Aboriginal rights were respected. I buy fair trade coffee and organic food, so I can imagine buying FSC paper and wood. Will I stop feeling bad whenever I use paper if I buy FSC? Come into the forest and I'll tell you what I found and how you can make a difference. For decades, loggers, environmentalists, and First Nations have been at war in the woods. The watchdogs have been barking, calling for consumer boycotts. But some people said, tougher environmental rules will just drive costs higher, mills will close, jobs will be lost, local towns will suffer. While others saw opportunity. A group of people as opposite as oil and water, or as incompatible as vegetarians and cattle ranchers, or as different as loggers and tree huggers, agreed to join forces. People from each of the 4 groups, environmentalists, First Nations, local citizens, and industry, all got together to find a peaceful and profitable solution. Because the truth is, they all care about the forest, but for different reasons. They founded FSC in 1993. WWF and Greenpeace are founding members. The heart of FSC is social justice and love of the forests, which passes the smell test when you know the 4 groups share power equally. FSC is like a car with 4 wheels. Everybody has to agree on the destination and how to get there. Chief Harry St. Dennis told me, you don't always get 100%, but for the most part, we are able to come to an understanding. And because you have 4 very different groups, 4 sets of eyes are checking everything. The proof is in your mail and on the wood. Every FSC product has a tracking number that verifies its path from the forest to the shop and every step in between. That number shows who cares about the forest. So what did I see in the forest? My boreal forest guide was Chris McDonald from Tembec. I saw a harvesting plan for an FSC forest. I climbed into the feller buncher and saw their GPS map. I saw how some trees are protected for wildlife with a W. And I got my answer to why do they waste the tops. Nicholas, the FSC auditor, chuckled when I asked him that question. So he told me about his father who wants to take a rake to the entire forest.
Pretty much if he could, I think he would rake the whole forest. And I try to explain to him, Dad, sometimes it's good to leave. A messy forest is usually a good forest in the sense that there's a lot of dead wood. And dead wood is very important because that's where the majority or a lot of species in the boreal forest, that's where they live and that's where they eat.
So now leaving the tops on the forest floor makes complete sense. And I realize how interrelated everything in the forest is. The narrow logging roads I found so treacherous are designed skinny on purpose. That way, wildlife and trees will have minimal disruption. This whole boreal adventure shows me that there are lots of people who care about the forest. I feel a bit sheepish again. I visit Richard Brooks at Greenpeace and ask, what can people like me, someone who lives in the city, do that will actually make a difference?
And one of the ways they can do this, one of these small pieces of green activism that they can do, is to seek out the FSC logo, to search for the FSC logo when they're going to buy products, be it at the grocery store, at the office supply store, at the home renovation store. Look for those products that have the FSC logo.
Shopping as activism? I can do that. Recycling is good, but is not enough. To protect our forests, we need to demand FSC. Aligning what I buy with what I believe feels right. If you care about the forest, we could make a difference together. As Chief Harry told me, the least footprint that you leave is in everybody's best interests.